name is Alice Lee. I'm an attorney at the law office of Joseph Potashnik in New York City. I want to give you a very brief outline of the New York State criminal tax law, and then I will talk about how criminal tax case can be effectively defended. When people talk about tax fraud, they usually think of the IRS and federal prosecutions. However, it is actually not the IRS that's responsible prosecuting most tax crimes. In New York, it is the Department of Taxation and Finance. New York State has a huge budget gap and is extremely money hungry. If you have a potentially criminal tax issue, it is much more likely to become a real criminal issue on the state level than on the federal level. So, what is tax fraud in New York State? The most commonly prosecuted type of tax fraud is willful failure to file tax return. We have represented a number of individuals who haven't filed taxes for years for various reasons, and this is something the government goes after aggressively. Another common type of tax fraud is filing a false tax return. This means that if you willfully make a false statement or supply false information of any kind on your tax return, you have committed a crime. These two are the front runners, but other common tax fraud crimes include failure to remit taxes collected on behalf of the state and failure to collect and pay a sales tax. Sales tax issues are extremely common and often prosecuted in New York. So, if you are the target of a criminal tax investigation, what can you do? In most cases, the government doesn't just come in and arrest you. You'll be notified of an investigation. This is when you must be proactive. Let me give you an example of an actual case we handled. Our client was the owner of a large restaurant. He was investigated for sales tax fraud. The restaurant collected sales tax and was required to report it, but the client underreported his taxes earned. Originally, the government said our client owed over $150,000. Before the case was referred to the DA's office for prosecution, we retained a forensic accountant who worked with the government's auditors to verify the numbers. As a result, the tax liability was significantly reduced. We then worked out a deal with the Department of Taxation and Finance to resolve the case administratively. The client was allowed to pay off the debt plus interest and penalties with a structured settlement schedule. He was never prosecuted. Some people violate tax laws intentionally, and some simply cannot figure out the complicated tax rules and regulations. In any prosecution of tax fraud, the government must prove that you have acted willfully, meaning with the intention to violate the law. If you discover that you are the target of the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance investigation, you may be in risk of criminal prosecution. You must talk to a competent New York tax fraud lawyer before discussing anything at all regarding the case with anyone else, let alone the investigators. Our first goal is to shut down any investigation in the beginning and minimize your criminal exposure. If you want to discuss your case with us, pick up the phone and call 212-577-6677. We will answer your questions and show you how your problems can be resolved.